Good morning to all. I'm here today to talk about the premature nuptial flight of Acromyrmex subterraneus, a research made at Mirmecología in which we try to discover if this flight is an event common to all or restricted to a few colonies. My name is Juliane Lopes. I'm a researcher and professor at Universidade Federal de Juiz de Fora in Brazil at the postgraduation program Biodiversity and Nature Conservation. The nuptial flight is the annual reproductive event of most ant species, in which hundreds of reproductive individuals are produced and released synchronously by the colonies. The massive production of males and queens represents a significant investment for the colony. These costs are counterbalanced when males successfully fertilize virgin queens and queens found new colonies. Acromyrmex is a polyandrous and polygynous ant species, with queens that mate with up to 10 males. Polyandry results in multiple patrilines within the workers, what interferes directly at the allocation of workers in different tasks and increases the colony's disease resistance. In polyandrous ant species, it's very probable that competition between males takes place before or after copulation. Also, competition is expected to occur between queens, influencing the number of produced males and time of their release. Despite the expected synchrony, it's common to observe an asynchrony in Acromyrmex nuptial flights. These flights differ between colonies in time, as well as sex ratio and number and morphology of the elates. In order to clarify and understand the occurrence of premature nuptial flights, we investigated two hypotheses in the polyandrous leaf-cutting ant Acromyrmex subterraneus. In the first, the premature nuptial flight occurs due to an error of synchronization in the release of reproductive individuals. In this case, colonies that release individuals in premature nuptial flights would not take part in main nuptial flights because they would have already released their males and virgin queens. In the second hypothesis, the premature nuptial flight occurs in order to reduce the competitive mating pressure for smaller males and females. In this case, a colony could participate in both reproductive events, but the reproductive individuals in the premature flight will be smaller, as they are less competitive in mating, but better flyers. This species is native to South America and has a wide distribution across Brazil, with a large number of registers in the Cerrado and Atlantic forest. It presents three physical castes of workers whose colors range from yellow to light brown. As any other leaf-cutting ant species, it uses mass recruitment to search for fresh leaves. These leaves are transported along foraging trails that go up to 100 meters long and are used to cultivate their fungus garden. Because of this behavior of cutting crops, they are of great economic importance, being considered pests by humans. In October 2013, the premature nuptial flight occurred on a muggy and cloudy morning, with high humidity and temperature after heavy rain on the previous day. 25 queens and 94 males were collected. After 1 month, the main nuptial flight happened, in which 62 queens and 192 males were captured. The capture effort was done by the same 3 people during 1.5 hours on the same site. These males and females were weighted and measured to check for morphometric difference between individuals from the 2 nuptial flights. In order to evaluate the genetic variation between males from the 2 flights and assign them to a mother colony, we collected 16 workers from 30 colonies near the site where we collected the sexuals. Then we extracted the DNA from both these workers and males. We separately amplified 5 microsatellite loci and then verified through electrophoresis, enabling the genic profiling of the individuals, and thus the assignment of males to a colony. A total of 69 alleles were amplified. All loci were polymorphic, with the exception of 1 in the premature flight. The number of alleles was higher in the main nuptial flight, And in this flight, the frequency of alleles were more evenly distributed, while in the premature flight, we observe few alleles with high frequencies. Males from the same flight were genetically similar, and through a principal correspondence analysis, we can see two separated groups of males corresponding to these two flights. The genetic distance between males from the premature and main flights was of 26%. Both males and females from the premature nuptial flight were lighter than those from the main nuptial flight. Similarly, males and females from the premature flight had smaller head and thorax width. We also calculated the expected level of polyandry and polygyny of each sampled colony. The microsatellite analysis indicated that about 83% of nests were polygynous. This result provided another evidence that premature nuptial flights in Acromyrmex could be a strategy to avoid the intense competitive mating pressure, which is expected in sites with a high frequency of polygynous colonies. Males from the premature flight were assigned to a cluster with 3 colonies, while those from the main flight were mainly assigned to another cluster with 11 colonies. The other males were assigned to the same cluster that contained the males from the premature flight, indicating that colonies that release males in the premature flight can also release males in the main flight. The greater number of colonies that participate in the main nuptial flight contributed to the higher genetic diversity in this flight. The early production and release of males in polygynous colonies could be a strategy to reduce male production competition among sister queens and at the same time enhance the colony reproduction chances by participating in 2 nuptial flights. Further research that analyzed the reproductive success of males from these different flights, assessing the quantity and quality of the sperm transferred to queens, can contribute to the understanding of this anticipated behavior. Thanks for your attention. Follow my lab on Instagram for more awesome ants research.
Juliane, we have here one of the questions. And Carolina Paris is asking, do you know how far females and males can fly?
How many?
No, not how many, but how far?
How far? There's an estimative that about 200 meters, Acromyrmex. There are other species like Ata can fly longer.
And now I will make you a personal question. You were talking about some advantages of this genetic diversity.
Yes.
Can you tell us, because there is people who can, or for example, me, I do not know very well this species. So can you tell us how are those advantages? How can they have an advantage of this diversity, and in which sense?
Okay. When you have a higher genetic diversity in the nest, for leaf-cutting ants, it's already noted that improves the disease resistance. And also there is some kind of interference in the division of labor within workers. Workers from different paternal are more prone to do some tasks different from other tasks.
Okay. And related with this immunological advantages.
Yes.
How is it improving their immunological system? How is it that they are more resistant to these diseases or infections? How is it connected with the genetic?
It's the same for all that it's for all species. When you have more diversity, genetic diversity, you are less prone to develop any disease. The occurrence of lethal genes are decreased.
Okay. And one more question from my side. I'm taking my time because for me this topic is very interesting. So when they have this diversity, this genetic diversity for the flights,
Yes.
are they having, like, for example, when they have lower diversity, are they having only one nuptial flight? And when they are having more diverse genetic, they are having more than one nuptial flight? And is it correlated with an advantages for the other habitat colonization and so on, or is it not related with that?
I don't know. I cannot answer your question. I'm not
I'm
sure about
sorry
this.
for my dog.
No, there's no problem. I think that the occurrence of two nuptial flights, it's more to improve the chance for the smaller males and females, because even with less genetic diversity, it's known also that Acromyrmex has a high rate of recombination, genetic recombination. And so even if a high estimative for inbreeding, this inbreeding can be overbalanced with the recombination rate.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question from Daniel Garcia, and he's saying, is it enough 5 microsatellites to get the whole genetic variability, or the accuracy of the results could improve even more, increasing the number?
Yes, we started with 14 primers, but these five primers annealed.
Yeah, it's not always easy to make them work.
Yes, the DNA God must look for you.
Yeah, exactly. So for the moment, we have no more questions.
Okay.
I also would like to tell you that if you have some question, if you want to write it in Spanish, I can tell her in English. It's not a problem for the language. I can tell her in English, not in Portuguese.
I can read in Spanish, but hablar en español, penso que voy a hablar cosas erradas.
Okay, Juliane, we have one more question from Chinserdam.
Okay.
Sorry, because may you be explaining it and I missed, but one colony can have the 2 types of flights during the same year?
Yes, it's always in the same year. The flights are, in this case of this study, it has a lapse of 1 month between the flights.
Mm-hmm. Within the same month?
No, it was not at the same month, but it can occur in the same month.
Okay.
The lapse of days was 30 days.
Yeah, we have some species here in the Iberian Peninsula where we have, for example, the Mensor species. They are flying in the spring, at the end of the spring, and also in autumn. So they also have two nuptial flights, and actually they are pretty wide in time. So maybe
Yes.
it can be something like that, no?
No, I think it's different because I don't know really. I'm not really sure about Mensor, but I think that Mensor there's different kinds of nuptial flights. It's different. It's I can think it's two reproductive events. For Acromyrmex, it's just one, but it's because the lapse is smaller.
Okay. Do you think it can be related also with the environment? Like we are here in the Iberian Peninsula is very dry, and your ecosystems are humid. And in some way, the natural flights here in the Iberian Peninsula are related with the humidity. Usually when it's going to rain or whatever, so maybe our labs is wider because of that, because they do not have humidity enough. But in your case, it's like more available, this environment. Do you think it can be something like that?
Yes, the humidity I think, is the trigger for the nuptial flight, especially because the period it occurs, it's just before the winter. in the beginning of the spring. So it's when the rain starts again. After this, before this, the soil is too hard to dig.
Okay. We have one comment and one question, and then we finish, and we go to the break. Carolina Paris said, this is not a question, just a comment. In Buenos Aires, we have at least 2 flights of Acromyrmex lundi.
Oh, great. You must investigate it.
And Xavier Arnan is saying, thank you for the nice presentation. It's evolutionary advantageous that minor males and females reproduce. What is the sense of this reproductive strategy?
Well, this by dividing the reproductives in these two events, the smaller ones will have more chance. And when I start to do this work, this research, the first thing that came in my head is that these males were sons of the workers because they are smaller. But then I investigated, I made some measurements in sons and males from workers, sons of workers, and when I found a great diversity, if they are sons of the workers, they will have a higher diversity, genetic diversity. And so I think it's not, they are not sons of the workers, and it's really another way to them to mate. Everybody wants this.
Can they have some advantages because they are developing faster? Because they are smaller size, so they are ready to start flying earlier than the larger one.
Yes, they are better flyers. They are better flyers, and they have not to compete with the larger ones.
Nice. Okay, so thank you very much. If somebody has some
Thank you for
extra
attention.
questions,